Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. And today we're heading into the deep sea to explore the fascinating world of octopuses.
Always a fun topic.
Always a fun topic. Now, our listeners, they love learning about how these incredible creatures manage to survive in, like, the harsh conditions down there in the deep. But what we're focusing on today is maybe the most amazing thing about them. Imagine a mother dedicating over 4 years to raising her young. That's what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, 4 years. That's longer than most people go to college.
I know. We're going to unpack the science behind this just mind-blowing display of parenting, what it tells us about octopuses in general, and how their unique adaptations, contribute to their success evolutionarily.
Yeah, and it all starts with the scientist named Dr. Bruce Robinson. So back in 2007, he was exploring the Monterey Canyon, using a remotely operated vehicle. And he kept coming back to this one specific spot on a rock wall, a staggering 1,397 meters deep.
Well, that's deep.
It's deep, yeah, over 4,500 feet. And it was during one of these routine dives that he came across this female octopus just hanging out on the rock wall, and she was brooding her eggs. Turned out to be a granuloid octopus.
Okay, so Dr. Robinson finds this granuloid octopus mom tending to her eggs, deep down in the canyon. I'm guessing this wasn't just a quick snapshot. Like, he didn't just see her once and move on.
No. Deep sea octopus breeding is incredibly rare to observe from the very beginning like that. So he kept going back, kept checking up on her. And what he ended up witnessing was this incredible story that unfolded over an astonishing 53 months.
53 months. That's over 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, can you even imagine sitting on eggs for 4 years?
I mean, think about all the things you could do in 4 years. You could get a degree, travel the world.
Exactly. So what was this granuloid octopus doing all this time? Like, was she just, sitting there?
So she basically put her entire life on hold for those eggs. She didn't eat during that whole period. And as you can imagine, over 4 years, her body started to show the effects. Dr. Robinson observed her becoming thinner, getting covered in debris, but she never strayed from those eggs.
What a dedicated mom.
Yeah, she was meticulously cleaning and oxygenating them, making sure that they survived in that cold, dark environment.
It's amazing that those little eggs even have a chance down there.
Yeah.
I mean, most shallow water octopus species, they brood for 1 to 3 months maybe.
Mm-hmm.
This deep sea mama, she took it to a whole new level of dedication.
So what happened at the end of those 53 months? Like, did she make it? Did she survive this marathon?
That's the thing. After those 53 months, she was never seen again. But there's good news. They did observe healthy young octopuses in the area later on, suggesting that she did survive to see her mission through. That's amazing. A true testament to a mother's love. It makes you wonder, how do their bodies even support this kind of crazy, prolonged fasting and care? Like, is this normal for all octopuses to just completely dedicate their lives to reproduction?
Well, not exactly. To understand that, we need to look at the bigger picture, the cephalopod life cycle in general. We're talking octopuses, squid, cuttlefish. They typically have really short lifespans, relatively speaking, 1 to 3 years, despite their impressive size in many cases.
Yeah, but didn't we talk about a cephalopod that lives a pretty long time?
That's right. You're thinking about the nautilus. They're kind of like the ancient wise elders of the cephalopod world. They can live for 20 years or even more. But there's a key difference here, and this is important. Most cephalopods, except for the nautilus, they reproduce only once in their entire lifetime.
So it's kind of a live fast, die young strategy, like put all your energy into one big reproductive event.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Rapid growth, they mature quickly, one reproductive event, and then their time comes to an end.
Okay, so it sounds a little tragic, but I guess it's a strategy that's worked for them evolutionarily. But does this apply to both males and females?
Yeah, generally. In fact, male octopuses often die shortly after mating.
Wow.
And there's even this one species, the octopus tachicus, where the male actually lets the female eat him after mating.
Wait a minute, she eats him.
It sounds pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
I know, but it's a way to provide her with extra nutrients for the eggs. Talk about the ultimate sacrifice.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So we know they live fast and reproduce once, but what's the deal with this whole self-destruct sequence? Is there a biological mechanism behind this behavior?
It's a great question. And the answer is, it gets even more fascinating. So scientists have identified this gland called the optic gland, and it's situated between the octopus's eyes.
The optic gland. Okay, so is this like their internal clock or something?
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Back in 1971, Professor Martin Wells from Cambridge University, he made this really groundbreaking discovery. The optic gland, it controls sexual maturation in octopuses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how does this gland tie into their limited lifespan?
So further research revealed this fascinating but somewhat grim fact. The optic gland, while triggering sexual maturity, it also suppresses the digestive system.
Oh,
So
interesting.
this leads to a gradual loss of appetite and eventually death.
So it's almost like they're programmed to shut down after they reproduce, like their biological mission is complete.
Pretty much. And think back to that granuloid mother brooding for 4.5 years, that incredible feat of fasting, dedicating everything to those offspring. It's all because of this powerful biological drive.
It's amazing and heartbreaking at the same time. But are there any outward signs that an octopus is, nearing the end?
Yeah, they do show some interesting behavioral changes. So they become less interested in hiding, less concerned with hunting. They actually start wandering around more, both in the wild and even in captivity.
Why would that be? Wouldn't that make them, like, more vulnerable to predators?
Well, scientists think these changes are linked to that reduced appetite caused by the optic gland. They simply don't need to hunt as much anymore. And being more visible might actually increase their chances of finding a mate. There was this really interesting case at the Seattle Aquarium a few years back. They had this giant Pacific octopus named Clyde. And Clyde, he rapidly gained weight, then he just stopped eating, started wandering more, and he actually died shortly after showing signs of mating behavior.
Oh, poor Clyde. But it is fascinating to see these biological forces at play. But wait a minute, didn't I read about a study where scientists actually messed with this, like, death switch? Is that right?
You're remembering correctly, there was this groundbreaking experiment in 1977 that really challenged the idea that an octopus's death after reproducing was inevitable.
This is where it gets really cool. Tell me more.
So this scientist, Dr. Jerome Wodinsky from Brandeis University, he decided to experiment with the optic gland in brooding female octopuses. So these females were already fasting, they were losing weight, the classic signs of a mother octopus in this stage. And Dr. Wodinsky, he surgically removed their optic glands.
He just took out the gland. That's it.
That's all it took. And the results were pretty shocking. The females, they stopped brooding, they started eating again, and get this, they doubled their weight.
No way. So they doubled their weight after already losing so much. It's like hitting the reset button on their whole life cycle.
Right.
What happened to their lifespan?
That's the most amazing part. They doubled their lifespan too.
What?
Yeah, Dr. Wodinsky himself described it as a purely accidental discovery, but what they had done was they had interfered with the natural death process of these animals.
That is mind-blowing. Sounds like science fiction. So what are the implications of this discovery?
It was a huge breakthrough. It confirmed that the optic gland is really the central player in this whole programmed death thing. But more importantly, it opened up all these new avenues of research into aging, lifespan, the factors that control them, not just in octopuses, but potentially in other animals, maybe even humans someday. I mean, think about the possibilities for caring for octopuses in aquariums, or even exploring the potential for, octopus farming.
Wow. It's incredible to think that one accidental discovery could have such a huge ripple effect. But this brings us back to the big question. Why? Why would cephalopods evolve this seemingly self-destructive strategy in the first place? Why live fast and die young when it seems so counterintuitive to survival?
Yeah, that's the evolutionary puzzle that has fascinated scientists for decades. And to understand it, we need to get into these two concepts: semelparity and iteroparity.
Okay, those are some big words. Break it down for us.
Okay, so semelparity, that's a fancy way of saying an organism has a single reproductive event in its lifetime, like Pacific salmon, for example. They make that incredible journey to spawn, invest all their energy into making these large, well-nourished eggs, and then they die. And their bodies decompose, providing nutrients to the ecosystem.
So they go all in on one massive reproductive event, and then that's it.
Exactly. Now, iteroparity is the opposite. That means having multiple reproductive events throughout your lifetime. Think Atlantic salmon.
Yeah.
They go back to the sea after spawning, and they can reproduce again later. They conserve energy for future reproduction, but they end up producing smaller eggs.
Okay, got it. So cephalopods, with their single reproductive event, they're more like the Pacific salmon. They're putting all their chips on the table, so to speak, for that one big reproductive gamble.
Exactly. And it's high stakes, high reward, but it seems to have worked out for them evolutionarily. By maximizing the chances that their offspring are going to survive, even if it means they die, cephalopods have really thrived in all these different marine environments.
It's amazing. Yeah. But it makes you wonder, what if octopuses lived longer? Could they become even smarter? Could they develop their own civilizations? I mean, we get this question a lot from our listeners. It's like a classic sci-fi trope.
It is a captivating thought. But, while cephalopod intelligence is amazing, it's important to remember that their intelligence developed within the context of their invertebrate origins. And they've got some pretty stiff competition out there from mammals. Think about dolphins, whales, chimpanzees, all these highly intelligent creatures.
So are you saying that a longer lifespan wouldn't actually make them smarter?
I think so. In fact, the rapid life cycle, it might actually be key to their intelligence.
Okay, how so?
Think about it this way. Faster generations, that means more opportunities for genetic mutations. And some of those mutations could lead to increased intelligence.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like evolution's running at warp speed almost.
Yeah, exactly. And compare that to, say, orcas. Orcas learn complex skills throughout their long lives, but that knowledge, it isn't passed down genetically. Every generation, it has to start from scratch. It's kind of like selective breeding of crops. Rapid growth cycles, they allow for quicker testing and improvement of varieties.
Okay, I see your point. But what about the nautilus? We were just talking about it. It has a long lifespan. Shouldn't it be like the brainiest cephalopod if long life equals intelligence?
That's a good point, but despite having a long time to learn from their parents, nautilus intelligence, it actually lags behind its octopus, squid, and cuttlefish cousins. It seems like longevity doesn't always equal brain power.
So this whole live fast, die young thing, it might actually be a strength, not a weakness, driving their rapid evolution and maybe even contributing to their intelligence.
It's a compelling argument, but there's one final mystery we need to talk about, and it's honestly kind of bizarre. It's this phenomenon of RNA editing in cephalopod brains.
Oh, yes. This is the one I've been waiting for. It's like they're rewriting their own genetic code on the fly, right?
Exactly. But to understand this, we need to have a little biology lesson.
Okay.
So imagine DNA as like the blueprint for building an organism.
Okay.
But the workers who actually build the organism, they can't read that blueprint directly. They need, construction plans. So that's where RNA comes in.
Okay.
It's transcribed from DNA, like a set of instructions based on the blueprint. And finally, these instructions, they're translated into proteins. And proteins are the actual building blocks of life.
Okay, I'm with you. So DNA is the blueprint, RNA is the construction plan, and proteins are the actual building. So where does this RNA editing come in?
RNA editing is when those construction plans get altered. It's like somebody is making notes on the plans before they're handed to the workers.
Oh, wow. So instead of just following those original DNA instructions, they're making changes along the way?
Yeah.
That's pretty wild, but why would they do that? What's the point?
That is the million-dollar question. And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So before we went on this tangent about the granuloid octopus and her amazing parenting, we were talking about RNA editing in cephalopods.
Right, this crazy ability they have to, rewrite their own genetic instructions.
It's wild. 60% of their neurons are doing this. It's like they've got a built-in molecular editing toolkit in their brains.
It really is mind-blowing. So what's the purpose? Why are they tinkering with their genes like this?
Well, it's still a bit of a mystery, but one theory is that it allows them to kind of fine-tune their protein function on the fly.
Interesting.
Imagine being able to adjust your biology to deal with changes in water temperature or food availability.
It's like they have this built-in adaptation mechanism, constantly optimizing their systems for, peak performance. Yeah, exactly. And there's some evidence to back this up. There was a study published in Cell back in 2017, and they looked at octopuses living in different water temperatures. What they found was that the ones in warmer water, they actually had different RNA editing patterns compared to the ones in colder water.
Oh, wow. So they're actually using RNA editing to adapt to their specific environment.
It seems that way, and it really highlights how flexible and adaptable their biology is.
It's amazing. But I gotta ask, could this RNA editing also play a role in their intelligence?
Yeah.
I mean, we know they're masters of camouflage, problem-solving, tool use even.
It's a great question and one that researchers are actively investigating. Some scientists think that RNA editing might actually be contributing to the complexity and adaptability of their nervous systems.
So it's like giving them a cognitive boost.
Maybe. It could be allowing them to, learn and adapt to new situations much faster than other animals can.
It's like they're always one step ahead.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Why don't we see this level of RNA editing in other intelligent animals? What about mammals?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mammals, even those with complex brains, they have much lower levels of RNA editing. And one theory is that it might have something to do with those different evolutionary strategies we talked about earlier.
You mean the whole live fast, die young versus a longer lifespan with multiple reproductive events?
Exactly. Cephalopods, with their shorter lifespans, they might be relying more heavily on these rapid adaptation mechanisms like RNA editing.
Right, they can't afford to wait generations for those beneficial mutations to show up.
They need to be able to adjust quickly within their own lifespan to survive and pass on their genes.
Makes sense. It's like they're playing this high-stakes evolutionary poker game.
And RNA editing is their ace in the hole.
Love that analogy. They're betting on adaptability to win against the odds.
You got it. And it really highlights how diverse and ingenious life on Earth can be. Cephalopods have found this unique way to thrive, and it involves them actively rewriting their own genetic code in response to the world around them.
It's incredible. We've really only scratched the surface here. There's so much more to learn about these amazing creatures.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, from the
That's-
granuloid octopus and her epic brooding period to this mind-boggling RNA editing.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. And as we start to wrap up this deep dive, I think it's worth going back to something we touched on earlier, this idea that octopuses might actually hold some valuable clues to understanding aging and lifespan in other animals, maybe even humans someday.
Right, right. Dr. Wodinsky's experiment, where he removed the optic gland and basically reversed the aging process in those female octopuses.
It was groundbreaking. What have we learned from that research? Could it lead to, breakthroughs in human aging?
That's the big question.
Well, while octopuses and humans are obviously very different,
They only have two arms.
right? But the insights we can get from studying them, they could give us some valuable clues. By understanding the role of that optic gland and how it affects lifespan, we might be able to find similar mechanisms or pathways that control aging in other animals.
So it's not about finding like the fountain of youth. It's about understanding the basic biology of aging and then using that knowledge to develop new ways to improve health and lifespan.
Exactly. The study of octopuses, it's a great reminder that nature is full of surprises. Even these, seemingly simple organisms, they can hold the key to solving really complex problems.
It's humbling.
It is. And it shows us the power of scientific curiosity, the importance of exploring the natural world.
I totally agree. But before we, get too philosophical here, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Their camouflage. I mean, it's incredible. They can blend in so seamlessly.
Oh yeah, their skin is truly remarkable. It's got these specialized cells called chromatophores, and they contain pigments.
Okay.
And these chromatophores are surrounded by muscles that can contract or expand. So by changing the distribution of those pigments, they can create this whole range of colors and patterns.
So it's not just about changing color. They can create textures and patterns that match their surroundings perfectly.
Yeah, it's like an art form.
It is. But how do they know what to look like? Do they have like a mental image they're trying to match?
It's not fully understood, but scientists believe they use a combination of visual cues and tactile feedback.
So they're not just seeing their environment, they're feeling it too.
That's right. They have incredibly sensitive skin, and they can detect these tiny changes in light and texture.
It's like they have a built-in 3D scanner, constantly mapping their surrounding.
Exactly. And this amazing camouflage, it's not just about blending in. They also use it for hunting, communication, even courtship displays.
Wait, courtship displays. Octopuses use their color-changing abilities to attract mates.
Oh, yeah. Male octopuses will often flash these bright colors and patterns to try and impress the females. It's their version of a peacock's tail feathers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you're a master of disguise, you got to find some other way to get noticed.
Exactly. And it really speaks to their intelligence and adaptability. They've taken this simple biological mechanism, these pigment-containing cells, and turned it into a multi-purpose tool. Survival, communication, even romance.
It's amazing. And it reminds us that nature's full of surprises.
It really is.
Even the most, seemingly alien creatures can have things in common with us.
Absolutely.
We all want to survive, reproduce, leave our mark on the world.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that these creatures, they're more than just, subjects of scientific study. They're intelligent, they're adaptable, and they're undeniably beautiful.
They are. And we need to remember that the ocean is this vast and mysterious place.
Full of wonders that we're just beginning to understand.
Exactly. Who knows what other secrets those cephalopod cousins of ours are hiding?
Well, that's the beauty of science. There's always more to learn. Always more to discover.
Always something new to marvel at.
And as we keep exploring our oceans and unraveling those mysteries, I have no doubt that we'll find even more incredible truths that challenge our understanding of the world around us.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey.
It has.
But remember, keep your eyes open for those wonders all around you, big and small. You never know what amazing discoveries are out there, even in your own backyard.
Keep exploring.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of octopuses. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring the world of octopuses, and I gotta say, I am still just blown away by this whole RNA editing thing.
It's pretty wild.
They can, reprogram their own brains. I mean, it makes you wonder, what other tricks do they have up their 8 sleeves?
That's the thing about octopuses, right? They never cease to amaze us.
Yeah.
They've evolved all these incredible adaptations that help them thrive in these crazy environments. We've talked about their reproductive strategies, their camouflage, their intelligence, but there's one more aspect of their biology that I find really fascinating, and that's their arms.
Oh, yeah. Those arms are incredible.
Oh.
So flexible, so dexterous, and it's like each one has a mind of its own.
It's true, each arm actually has its own cluster of neurons, so they can actually operate semi-independently from the central brain.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. An octopus can be using one arm to, search for food in a crevice, another arm to hold onto a rock, and another arm to keep an eye out for predators, all at the same time.
So it's like having 8 little mini brains all working together.
Yeah, exactly, like a team.
But if the arms are so independent, how do they coordinate their actions? It seems like that would be chaotic.
Right. Well, there's this really cool interplay between, centralized control and decentralized autonomy. So the brain kind of sets the overall goal, the intention, but the arms, they have the freedom to figure out the details, So it's super efficient. It lets them react quickly and adapt to unexpected situations.
So it is like a team. The leader sets the strategy, and then the team members have the flexibility to, adapt their tactics as they go.
Exactly. And this distributed intelligence is what makes their arms so versatile. They can, reach into tight spaces, manipulate objects, even taste their surroundings with their suckers. Wait a minute, taste with their suckers? I thought suckers were just for grabbing things.
Oh, no, they're multi-purpose, those suckers. They're covered in thousands of chemoreceptors, which allow them to detect chemical traces in the water.
So it's like having taste buds on their fingertips.
Exactly. So they're basically tasting everything they touch.
That's wild. Imagine walking around and you could taste everything with your hands. It would be a whole different way to experience the world.
It would change the way we cook.
Totally. But speaking of experiencing the world, we've been talking about octopuses as if they're all the same, but there are so many different species out there, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are over 300 known species of octopus.
Wow.
Ranging in size from the tiny pygmy octopus, which can fit on the tip of your finger, to the giant Pacific octopus, which can span over 16 feet.
Wow, that's huge.
Right. And they live in all sorts of environments, from shallow coral reefs to the deepest parts of the ocean.
So much octopus diversity out there. Are there any, standout species in terms of their adaptations?
Oh, there are so many cool examples. Take the mimic octopus, for example. This octopus, it can actually change its shape and color to impersonate other sea creatures. Things like lionfish, sea snakes, even flatfish.
Wait, so it can make itself look like other animals? That's like something out of a cartoon.
I know, right?
That is incredible.
It's an amazing adaptation that helps them avoid predators and sneak up on prey.
Wow.
And then there's the blanket octopus.
Okay.
This one has this large web-like membrane that connects its arms. And when it's threatened, it spreads this membrane out, making itself look much larger to scare off predators.
It's like their own personal parachute.
Mm-hmm.
These adaptations are amazing. It really makes you realize how much we still don't know about the ocean and the creatures that live there.
Totally agree. Every time we dive into the underwater world, it's a reminder of the incredible diversity and ingenuity of life on Earth.
Well said. And as we surface from this deep dive into the world of octopuses, I hope our listeners will take away a newfound appreciation for these incredible creatures. They're intelligent, they're adaptable, and they're full of surprises.
They are indeed, and their story reminds us that there's always more to discover, more to wonder about.
So to our listeners, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop marveling at the wonders of the natural world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.